So Lwazi Munjodzi, African political analyst, joins me on the news to discuss this particular issue in Zimbabwe. You're welcome.
Much, my brother.
All right, President Hichilema believes SADC countries should engage Zimbabwe on human rights of their citizens first, rather than calling for sanctions to be removed. What are your thoughts on this move?
So the SADC leadership has been seized with the Zimbabwean matter for almost 2 decades now, where there has been efforts to try and ensure that the Zimbabwean regime stop the human rights violations targeting its citizens and opponents, political opponents, as well as human rights defenders. And there's been little success, even though there's been a GNU 2009 to 2013, where opposition and ZANU-PF shared power. After that, we saw a continuation of the same human rights violations. After the coup of 2017, the government of Zimbabwe has so far killed in excess of 20 people using the military and the police. So President Hichilema's sentiments are quite well informed that the Zimbabwean government need to treat its citizen with dignity, but also the crisis in Zimbabwe has been happening and ongoing because of disagreements around the electoral processes and what the opposition has characterized as election thievery. And so until and unless a few things happen, the first one being that the Zimbabwean government stop brutalizing its own citizen, and secondly, that there is democracy deepening in Zimbabwe and that electoral processes are transparent and the government can account, we are unlikely to see an end to the crisis in Zimbabwe, but also we are unlikely to see a removal of the sanctions by America and the EU, even though those sanctions are targeting mainly individuals, with the exception of Zidera by America, which targets companies that are linked to the military. So one of the key issues that we need to be able to discuss, which I think the new regime in Zimbabwe understood quite well when they took power, that they have to institute reforms in Zimbabwe for them to be able to re-engage with the community of nations. President Emmerson Mnangagwa was very clear in 2017 when he took power that he understood what was needed to happen for Zimbabwe to be accepted back into the community of nations. That would be to respect human rights, in fact, to deepen the protection of human rights, but also to be able to institute the necessary reforms that will bring an end to electoral outcome contestations. So it's quite clear that, in my opinion, the SADC region feels that Zimbabwe has to give much more to its citizens to be able to be reconsidered in the community of nations.
You talked about instituting reforms, but then some people think that it is beyond Hakainde Hichilema's government. So they are saying that maybe if African leaders can come together and rally, they can help Zimbabwe tackle these issues. How do you think that these African leaders can play a role in helping Zimbabwe deal with these issues, and of course the issue of the dwindling economy?
So in 2019, the South African Foreign Affairs Minister, Minister Naledi Pandor, described the Zimbabwean crisis. In her own words, she believed that for the economy and the social crisis to be resolved in Zimbabwe, we have to resolve the political crisis first. So that's a key and necessary point to understand on the issues of Zimbabwe, that at the core of the Zimbabwean crisis is the politics that is wrong. And so to be able to correct that politics, it is the government of Zimbabwe that wields so much power in the resolution of the political crisis. What do we need to do to resolve this crisis is an important question. And I'm saying to you, number one, we need to ensure that we do not continue to have contestation around electoral reforms. And the reforms that are needed in the elections are known. The transparency issues that have bedeviled ZEC, which is the Zimbabwe Election Commission, for too long. The idea of who actually runs the election, the involvement of the military, the lack of transparency in the voter registration process, and all the other things that have been put on the table for a very long time need to be addressed. Without addressing that, we are then unable to resolve the Zimbabwean crisis. Zimbabwe is a polarized country, very divided, almost through the middle, because people feel that there has been a lot of mismanagement by ZANU-PF. But one of the key issues that become problematic is that the violence and human rights violations we have seen in Zimbabwe, particularly political violence, has been sanctioned by the state, sponsored by the state. And I think what Hichilema is saying is that the Zimbabwean government need to stop beating, killing, and arbitrarily arresting its own citizens and find a way of resolving the crisis.
All right, thank you so much, Munjodzi, for dropping